Do Targa prices develop more favorable than Carrera ones, and are you therefore better off with a Targa? That's what we will find out in this video. The 991 Targa is arguably the most beautiful model of the range, but this comes at a cost. It's also the most expensive one. And the result of this is that it's a relatively rare car. For every Targa there are only 12 Carreras for sale. But this doesn't mean that the car isn't popular. I continuously receive many requests to analyze the Targa market, and under every Carrera analysis many of you are asking about the Targa values. The Targa does then also have many ingredients that could lead to a more favorable price development than what we have seen in the Carrera market. And remember that over there we saw a decrease in the increase rate. So let's see what's going on in the Targa market, and as always we start with a market overview. Over here we have the model year to price perspective for the Carrera and the Targa market. And a few things are evident from this picture. First, as I mentioned before, the Targas are rare. There are currently only 68 clean titles for sale. Second, they are expensive. You can see that the premium to a Carrera tends to be $47,000. Now it's not a completely fair comparison because the market mix differs between the two markets, but you can clearly see that the Targas are priced at the top end of the Carrera price range or even above that. The Targa market is namely dominated by the S and the GTS, whereas the base model has a significant market share in the Carrera market. Over here you can see that out of the 68 Targas there are 42 S's for sale, 20 GTS's and only 6 base models. So I guess that Targa buyers rather go all the way than opting for the base model. Now besides the model mix, we can see that the median price is $149,000, but that prices already start at $100,000 and go up to $230,000. Now before we wrap things up, I also wanted to highlight that I was surprised by the mixture in the price levels. In the Carrera market there's a clear split between the base, S and GTS model, but it's less evident in the Targa market. It's no problem to find an S or base that is priced higher than an equivalent GTS or S model. So we're now up to date on today's market, and normally this would mean that it's time to have a look at the value development over time. However, because it's the first time that a Targa features on the channel, let's give it a proper introduction and let's talk for a moment about the price drivers. We already saw in the previous graph that model year is an important driver. A 2012 Targa is clearly cheaper than a 2021. Model year is in fact the most important price driver when you also consider the mileage, the model type and the generation. The second place is for the mileage, so let's also investigate the relationship between the mileage and the price. It can namely be so that this is much higher than for an equivalent Carrera. The depreciation per 1000 miles is therefore the first and important indicator that can help to answer the question that we posted in the beginning of the video. Do Targa values develop more favorable than Carrera ones? Over here we have the depreciation per 1000 miles for the base, S and GTS, and we have the mileage on the horizontal axis, the price on the vertical axis and the depreciation lines. However, there's a problem with this graph. You can see that the light shaded area is very large for the base model. This area shows the uncertainty in the estimate and is so large because we only have a few observations. Therefore, to get a more reliable estimate, let's add some historical data to the plot. This shows that the average depreciation per 1000 miles sits at minus 0.7% for all Targa models. And in monetary values this of course differs between the models as they have different price levels. But this rate of minus 0.7% is quite good. For the Carrera this sits between minus 0.7% for the base model and minus 1% for an S. The GTS sits in the middle with minus 0.8%. Therefore, it's fair to conclude that from a mileage perspective the Targa scores very good, especially given the premium you need to pay for one. But does this good score on the depreciation per 1000 miles also translate to a favorable value development over time? That's what we will find out now. Yet, before we do that, if you enjoyed this video, please support the channel by clicking on the like button down below. Thank you. Also remember to subscribe so you stay up to date on the latest development in the car market. The content has been very Porsche oriented lately, but some other brands will make an appearance next week. But now then, the value development over time. Over here we can see the median prices for the base, S and GTS. And this reveals that prices moved in line with the rest of the market. We can see a price increase during the beginning of 2021 and a decrease in the increase rate or a flat development in the second half of 2021. Now I know that the price trend for the base model shows something completely different, but we can't trust that trend. The market size is too small and a few high mileage cars pushed prices down in August of 2021. Therefore, I think it makes more sense to look at the trend for the S model and to use that as a proxy for the base model. And speaking about this S model, we can see that prices increased with $20,500 or 18% between December 2020 and August 2021. Yet, the most recent increase is with 8% less severe. And these two numbers are slightly better than what we can see in the GTS market. Over there we can see that prices increased with 13% and more recently we can see that they came down by 1%. So this price decrease is not statistically confirmed, so it could be the result of chance. But now then, this value is increased more than in the Carrera market, hereby reflecting some of the rarity of the Targa model. Let's compare the price trend for the S and the GTS models. Like you saw, we don't have enough data for the base model. Over here we have in green and blue the development for the Targa and Carrera GTS, while we have in red and orange the development for the Targa S and Carrera S. And look at that, the price developments are quite similar. If we start with the GTS's, we can see that prices increased with 17% in the Carrera market and then stabilized. The same goes for the Targa. Prices went up with 13% and then stabilized. Over the full period though, the Carrera has the upper edge, as values went up with 16% versus 12% in the Targa market. If we continue then with the S models, we can see that Targas went up with 27% between December 2020 and now, while this is 23% for the Carrera. So in this case, Targa prices developed more favorable. And I think you know by now where this is going. If we namely look at the price trend on an aggregate level, so without the model type split, these differences cancel out. In the last 6 months, for example, the median price for a Targa increased by 2%, whereas this is 1.8% for a Carrera. Therefore, I think it's fair to conclude that there was no significant difference in the price development between the two models. And with that, let's go back to our original question. Do Targa prices develop more favorable than Carrera ones, and are you therefore better off with a Targa? Based on what we just saw, I don't think that there's a significant difference between the two. Therefore, if you're in the market for a Targa, it should really be because you enjoy the model, and not so much because there is a difference in the value development. We first looked at the mileage sensitivity for both models, and this revealed that the Targa scores good with an average of minus 0.7% per 1000 miles driven. However, it's not a unique score, as also a base Carrera depreciates at this rate. We then transitioned into the value development over time, and this revealed that there are minor differences when you look at the model types. Yet, this can just be the result of chance, as there didn't emerge a clear winner. On an aggregate level, price developments are then also identical. However, there are two things that we need to keep in the back of our mind. First of all, we only looked at 3 to 4 data points in time, and this is of course a limited number and not enough to really prove anything. I will therefore continue to update these time series and share the developments with you. Second, we only looked at the 991, but what about the other generations? Can we transfer these tentative conclusions to them? It's something I'm hoping to find out in the future. If we take a quick peek at the Targa market of February 2022, we can see that the 991 is by far the largest market. That's why up to now I only included that generation. Especially the 996 and 997 markets are very small, so it will be difficult to get a reliable price trend for them. For the 992 market though, it might be possible to get a clean development, as the market is likely to grow over time. Additionally, it will be interesting to see what the value development is for these heritage editions. And with that we arrived at the end of this video. Now if you enjoyed this data-driven way of analyzing car markets but would have liked to see the analysis for a different car, let me know the name of the car for which you would like to see an analysis by commenting it down below in the comment section. I can already reveal that next week's car is not a Porsche but is a car that was frequently requested. As always, thank you for watching and I hope to see you next week for a new video.